The one area we've not touched on, and I do want to get into this because you've done a lot of the fan conventions promoting Star Wars and then The Empire Strikes Back, but one in particular during Empire was Worldcon, which in '79 happened to be held in Brighton in England.
Yes.
Doesn't come round to England very often, and I'd be interested to hear a little bit about that. First of all, how that came about and what you took down and what you set up for the show, and then what the fan reaction was like. Because obviously, promoting Star Wars, it was a new property. You were doing the Comic Cons, nobody really knew about it, but the experience must have been very, very different for Empire. It was the hottest property around, and how you manage fan expectation.
It was easier marketing Empire than Star Wars, which I'm sure comes as no surprise to anybody. We first appeared at Worldcons in 1976. It was the third convention appearance. We'd done WesterCon, which is a West Coast science fiction convention, Comic-Con in San Diego, and then the Worldcon, which that year in '76 was in Kansas City, Missouri. And we set up in a side function room, an exhibit of costumes and R2 and McQuarrie paintings and photos and props that people could come in and see throughout the convention. Mark Hamill was there. No one knew who Mark was. I mean, we would tell him that he was in the movie, but okay, they didn't really know what the movie was, and no one had ever heard of Mark Hamill, or very few people. He'd done some TV stuff, but didn't have a lot of notoriety. And then one night of the convention, there was a slideshow, which Charlie Lippincott did, and a panel with Charlie, Mark Hamill, and Gary Kurtz talking about the movie. And a lot of people came into that very skeptical. Again, 1970s science fiction. And these were, people who were big enough fans of science fiction that they would travel across country or across the world to attend a convention. So they came in, a lot of them very skeptical, but we were happy that by the end of it, I don't know if they were sold, but a lot of them were open to the point of, okay, if they can pull this off, it's going to be great. And we did something at all of the Worldcons thereafter, 78, 77, 78, 79. They were much smaller in 77 and 78. But in 79, the Worldcon was in Brighton. We were still shooting Empire in Elstree, in Borehamwood. So I arranged to essentially repeat what we had done in 76. We got, actually it was a group of, sort of a pair of side rooms. They were linked together, where we set up an exhibit with character costumes, about 18 McQuarrie paintings, several dozen black and white and color photos. Back then, you would build these big elaborate sets in miniature so you could figure out what they would look like and what the camera angles would be. And so we had the carbon freezing chamber set, and we had the Dagobah set. Dagobah was about, I think, 4 by 8 feet and three-dimensional. And so we had all this stuff set up, and we had a full-size snow speeder. This stuff was in this side room, and outside the exhibit hall where the dealer's room and the art show was, we had the full-size snow speeder and a sign on it, "Come see the Empire Strikes Back exhibit in thus and such a room." And then one night, Gary Kurtz and I did a slideshow and Q&A talking to people about The Empire Strikes Back. So that was the promotion we did in Brighton. And the one thing One thing I'm upset about in Brighton is while we have a couple photos of Gary and I doing that talk in the main ballroom of the convention, which was, no, it doesn't matter which room it was, but we have no photos of that exhibit. We have a few photos of the exhibit from 1976, but I have found no photos anyone had taken of that exhibit. Now, we had signs up saying no photos, please, but apparently everyone obeyed those signs and no one took any photos.
Well, there we go. If anybody listening out there has got any photos from Worldcon 79, you know where to send them.
I would love to see them.
Cheeky press guy must have sneaked a few photos in somewhere. The Brighton Argos.
Think, but no one's been able to turn any up.
Wow.
So what was the reaction like, Craig? I mean, to see a full-size snowspeeder prop, I mean, you must have been beating people off with sticks, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it had, you know, stanchions and cord around it. But whether or not anyone snuck up on it during the night, I can't say. But yeah, I mean, the reaction, obviously, Empire was not a hard sell. People were looking forward to it because they had seen Star Wars and they liked Star Wars. So the response was great. People were excited. They were excited to see that it wasn't going to be the same thing again. We weren't doing the same story. We weren't going to the same places. We were going to more and different worlds. We were going to see more and different things. That's why the very first photo we released from Empire, when we announced that the film was shooting again, this was in like February or March of 79, when we started shooting in Norway, was a photo of Luke on a tauntaun. It was, you know, we're in a snowy location on a really weird looking animal. So it's all new and different. And that was the message we wanted to get across.
Yeah, I can remember seeing that back in the day and being absolutely intrigued, as you say, totally different from Star Wars, and thinking, wow, where are they going with this now? Yeah, great image to choose. And I've got to ask you, in your book, you've made mention of one of the maquettes, one of the set models, very nearly gave away one of the major plot points of the movie, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. You know, the stuff had all been trucked down from Elstree and set up by some of our prop guys who, you know, drove down and carted the stuff up and set it up in the room because they knew how to handle it. And no one paid much attention to the Dagobah set, you know, miniature. And then I remembered that it had a little tiny clay or you know, Sculpey or whatever material it was made of, but a little tiny figure of Yoda, who was a complete secret at that time. We did not announce Yoda until the movie came out. This would have been 9 months later. So we opened the door to the room to let people in, and I suddenly remembered that Yoda was still on the miniature set. So I sort of, as nonchalantly as possible, wandered over to where Dagobah was and grabbed Yoda and stuck him in my pocket so that no one would see him. And of course, the people who came into the room first were looking at the stuff at that end of the room, and the Dagobah set was in the far end. So I had time to get over there before anyone else did.
The secret was safe. I love that story.
You saved Empire Strikes Back. You saved it.
Yes, perhaps so. Perhaps not completely safe. But we all do our part.
Hello there. You may remember me from The Empire Strikes Back. Now, don't forget to hit subscribe and also click the bell for notifications.